Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will give an introduction to those who have never used PowerBasic before or even considered taking up programming. Today we will look at code libraries. What are they and what benefits could they bring to programming? So what types of library are there? Well, there are three basic types: include files, dynamic linked libraries, and static linked libraries. So what are the advantages of using libraries? When you start coding and you write more and more programs, you will discover that there are some common pieces of code that appear in multiple programs. These common code sections can be placed in one or more libraries, so that when you write the next program, you can just reference code that has already been written and tested, thereby saving you time and effort. If you are programming as part of a group of developers, you should be able to benefit from code that others have already written, thereby shortening the time taken to develop a new program or application. However, as you can guess, there needs to be some documentation of these libraries and the code they contain to ensure that you can use them correctly. Think of libraries as tools. If you are repairing a garden fence, you don't run off and design a hammer and nails. Instead, you use tools that someone else has already developed. Today we're going to look at what kinds of library PowerBasic supports, how you use them, and how they change the way you can develop code. First, we will look at include files. Then we will explore the uses of dynamic linked libraries, DLLs. Then finally, we will look at static linked libraries, SLLs. With include files, you can build up a library of common functions and procedures and simply use the include statement to add that functionality to your application. If in your new application you create code that you think may be of use in future applications, then placing it in its own include file will give you that option. When PowerBasic links in all your include files and performs a compilation, then only functions and procedures that you reference are included in the executable. This is known as dead code removal and allows you to have small executables as only code that is needed is included. Once compiled, then the code from the include files is fixed inside the executable, making it quite standalone. Having built up a library of useful functions in your include files, you can then reuse your code by simply including those files in applications developed in the future. Of course, you have to take care not to amend the interface to common functions. For example, adding or taking away the parameters of a function inside the include file, as this would cause any future compilation of older applications dependent on that interface. Dynamic linked libraries are another way to produce common libraries. These are compiled like applications to produce a binary file with the file extension of DLL. The DLL will have a list of exported functions and procedures that will form the interface between the DLL and your application. Like applications, DLLs are formed of code files, and can of course make use of include files. The PowerBasic Windows compiler can produce EXEs, DLLs, and SLLs, while the console compiler can produce EXEs and SLLs. With a DLL, your code is external to your application, and as such, the DLL could be referenced by many separate applications at the same time. The Windows operating system keeps track of the number of applications referencing a DLL, and will only unload it from memory when nothing is left referencing it. In your application, you can either reference the DLL by early or late binding. In late binding, you can check to ensure the DLL is present before loading it. but you need to free the library before your application ends. In early binding, you merely reference the DLL by name and the functions or procedure you wish to call. In this case, if the DLL is not present, a Windows error message will pop up and your application will terminate. As the libraries can be common, you can update an application or many applications by simply rolling out one or more updated DLLs. For example, if you have a function in a DLL that performs some computational intensive process, and you have now discovered a more efficient way to code it, then recompiling your DLL and releasing it to overwrite the existing DLL will upgrade the application or other applications using it. As always with updating files, the DLL cannot be in use when you attempt to overwrite it. Static link libraries are in a sense somewhere between include files and DLLs. Like DLLs, they are compiled binaries, but like include files, they can be added to your applications at compile time. Having compiled an SSL, you can use the link command in your source code to add in the code precompiled in your static linked library. You can of course give this static link library file to other developers, who can then add the file into their applications, without them having access to the source code that made it in the first place. Both SQL Tools and MyLittleGrid took this approach, allowing developers to boost the functionality of their applications. It's important to note that if your static linked library source code has, for example, 100 functions within it, then when the library is compiled, all 100 functions will be contained within it. So when linked in with your application, even if you are not using some of these functions, the code will still be in your application. This will make your exe larger than it would have been if just include files had been used. But PowerBasic does produce small binary files anyway, so it's not a major issue. As these static link libraries are pre-compiled, they can be given or even sold to other development teams to include in their applications without having to supply them with the original source code. So what is the best approach? What is the best to use? The quick answer to this is that it depends on your applications and the way you release updates to them. Some applications will make use of include files, static link libraries, and DLLs, and others may not use any of them. Whatever works for you, PowerBasic provides you with many tools to create applications which are limited only by your imagination. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.